As Bob Dylan said, times they are a-changin' as LaSalle has announced yet another new head coach, this time for women's basketball. Hello, I'm Tegan Lamont.
And I'm Dana Pecora. Baseball was hot for a hot second, but then they fell short to Georgetown and ruined the streak. You're watching LaSalle TV's home for Explorer Athletics, SportsLine.
Welcome to SportsLine. Men's basketball player Tracy Carter was kind enough to join me to talk about his outlook on the 2018-19 season and their new head coach.
And later, Nick Palaio comes on desk to talk about an upcoming baseball series for this week's Explorer Report.
But first, let's take a look at our SportsLine top 3.
Number 1, LaSalle Athletics announced Mountain McGilvray. He will take over the women's basketball program as head coach. McGilvray was one of the many new faces to be added to the coaching staff next year. He most recently helped lead Quinnipiac to 7 straight 20-win seasons. The Bobcats went undefeated in the MAAC conference in 3 of McGilvray's seasons with the team and won the conference regular season title 5 times. The team also had successes in the NCAA tournament, including a run to the Sweet 16 last year. McGilvray is a Philly local and graduated from Temple in 1996. In addition to coaching college, he has 13 years of experience coaching high school and an AAU basketball in the Philadelphia area.
Number 2, lacrosse has another A10 rookie doing great things. This week, freshman Emily Johnston was named A10 Rookie of the Week after a spectacular performance against VCU. Johnston scored 5 goals and registered 2 assists to help the Explorers to a narrow victory over the Rams. Johnston's 5 goals all came in the second half, with one of them being the game winner. Johnston also had a solid outing against Richmond. She managed a hat trick against the Spiders and was one of only 2 Explorers to score more than 1 goal in the game. Johnston is currently 3rd on the team in goals with 25 and 2nd on the team in assists with 8.
Number 3, on April 23rd, the athletic department hosted its annual athletics banquet to celebrate achievements on and off the field. Seniors Fabian Bergman, Paige McDowell, and Morgan Zeckley were named Scholar Athletes of the Year for their efforts in the classroom. Gregory Dix of the men's track team took home the De La Salle Service Award for his work in the community. Dix organized a fundraiser collecting money to send to Puerto Rico after the hurricane in September. The women's soccer team took home some awards as well for their impressive season, where they went undefeated in the A10. The women took home the award for Win of the Year for their victory against VCU in the A10 championship. The double overtime win clinched the conference championship for the Explorers and gave them an automatic bid into the NCAA tournament. Larissa Zambelli won the award for Performance of the Year for her play in that game that she held VCU scoreless for over 90 minutes to give LaSalle the win.
Yeah, so I think one thing that we really need to say is congratulations to everybody that was recognized for those awards. There's a lot of big accomplishments there, big personal, big things said about the personality of our athletes.
Yeah, and the best part about it is it's on and off the field.
Right.
I mean, that Gregory Dix of the men's track team, he made a fundraiser and sent money home to Puerto Rico after the devastating things that happened there. So I think it's really awesome that our athletes aren't getting just recognition for on the field, but also off the field as well.
Absolutely.
And then the women have a new head coach with a pretty cool name, Mountain. All I can say is I really hope that this is, the thing that turns this team around. Obviously, they need something to turn the team around.
Yeah.
And I really think having a new face could be what does that.
Yeah, and he's another successful assistant coach in his sport, so that's a really good outlook for the team heading forward.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this week's headlines. Let's see how our teams fared this week. The baseball team picked up their first A10 series win against UMass. The Explorers fell short in the first game, 3-2, but ended up bouncing back in the next 2 games. The second game was tied at 2 until Brian Dudek singled in the 8th, allowing Tommy Toll to score the go-ahead run. The Explorers won the game 5-4. In Game 3, the score was tied at 1 in the 9th. The two teams both scored runs in the last frame, but the Explorers would ultimately take the 4-3 victory. The Explorers extended their winning streak by defeating Maryland Eastern Shore 6-1. Nico Jenkins was on the mound for his first time as an Explorer and had a spectacular outing. Jenkins struck out 5 and only allowed 1 hit over 4 shutout innings. The Explorers then traveled to Georgetown for a Tuesday matinee. The Hoyas proved to be too much as Georgetown put up 8 runs in the first inning. LaSalle would manage 5 runs, but ultimately fell 8-5.
Softball played a weekend series at home against George Mason. The team dropped the first 2 games. Isaiah Clark was at Game 3 and has the coverage.
Sunday afternoon, the LaSalle Explorers went up against A10 rival George Mason. It was a phenomenal outing for sophomore Riley Gerhardt, who started off the game, striking out all 3 batters in the first inning. She would continue to dominate throughout the game, taking a no-hitter into the 5th inning. She was matched by George Mason pitcher Becca Ansborough, who also had a no-hitter going into the 5th. After giving up a hit and 2 infield errors, the Explorers got out of a bases-loaded situation with a diving catch by shortstop Emily Conway. LaSalle would get runners in scoring position in the bottom half of the 5th inning, but failed to capitalize. It wasn't until the 6th that George Mason would score the first run of the game. But LaSalle would quickly answer back with a 3-run homer by Marissa Ewald in the bottom half of the inning, pulling the Explorers up 3-1. Unfortunately, things would go south in the 7th when relief pitcher Mackenzie Peace gave up 3 homers and a double to put the Colonials up 6-3, which would end up being the final score. Riley Gerhardt ended the day with 1 earned run on 5 hits and 3 strikeouts. The homer by Marissa Ewald was her 3rd of the year. The loss brings LaSalle's record to 12-26 overall and 3-11 in the A10. For SportsLine, I'm Isaiah Clark.
It was a week of highs and lows for the lacrosse as the team went 1-1. Their first game was at VCU where they squeaked out a 13-12 victory over the Rams. The LaSalle freshman wave continued their strong push as the young trio of Emily Johnston, Anina Yakabuchi, and Bridget Ruski combined for 11 of the team's 13 goals. Johnston led the way with 5 tallies, while Yakabuchi and Ruski scored 3 times each. Their second match was a showdown against a very good Richmond team, where the Explorers fell 18-11. Yakabuchi and Johnston again led the way for the Explorers, scoring 5 and 3 goals respectively. The Explorers were outshot by a staggering margin, 35-18. It was a rare rough week in terms of goal scoring for LaSalle's top goal scorers, as Brittany Edwards managed just 1 goal in the 2 games, and Bridget Ruski scored just 1 goal in the Richmond game.
The men's track and field team kept their season rolling with a couple meets this past week. They competed in both the Larry Ellis Invitational and the Widener Invitational. At the Larry Ellis meet, a team made up of Ache Hall, Chase Campbell, Ethan Cook, and Justin Guare finished in 3rd place in the 4x100 meter relay. The team crossed the finish line with a time of 42 seconds. The blue and gold also had 3 runners finish in the top 20 in the 800 meter run. Anthony Hawthorne, Nick Smart, and Nathan Gillis placed 9th, 15th, and 19th in a field of over 60 runners. Meanwhile, at the Widener Invitational, sophomore Dom Musalin led the Explorers in the 800 meter as he placed 10th in a field of over 100 runners. He finished the race with a time of 1 minute and 57 seconds. Jordan Patterson finished 13th in the 110 hurdles, clocking in at 17 seconds.
The women's track team set some records at the Larry Ellis Invitational. The team of Ariel Mitchell, Jessica Bryant, Desiree Osley, and Chidima Matthew set a new program record in the 4x100 relay. The team finished with a time of 47.37 seconds for a 7th place finish. Mitchell individually placed 5th in a field of 40 in the 100 meter dash. She finished with a time of 12.13 seconds. Grace Mancini took 8th place in the 3,000 meter. Michelle Myland then finished 13th in the 1,500 meter, while teammate Caitlin Poez followed shortly behind in 14th place. Finally, Jessica Bryant placed 7th out of 18 in the triple jump, while also finishing 13th out of 23 in the long jump.
The men's tennis team took part in the Atlantic 10 weekend as they went head-to-head with Duquesne and St. Joe's. The team suffered a 6-1 loss at the hands of the Dukes despite a well-fought battle in doubles play. The lone point came from Francesco Mari as the junior claimed a victory in the #1 spot of singles play. The team then ended their weekend on Sunday against Big Five rival St. Joe's, where they lost yet again 5-1. The single point came from senior Tomas Christian as he defeated his St. Joe's opponent in the #4 spot. The women's team also competed in 2 conference matches this past weekend. The first against the Fordham Rams, who would defeat the Explorers 6-1 despite 2 LaSalle wins in doubles play. They then came back to Philly to finish off their regular season against St. Joe's and would go on to lose 6-1. The only point came from freshman Hannah Granillo after a straight set victory in the #4 spot of singles play.
The women's golf team took to the links over the weekend to participate in the MAAC Championship at Disney's Magnolia Golf Course in Orlando, Florida. The team sat in 8th place after the first round of competition. Redshirt freshman Maribel Declan led the way with a first-round score of 87, carding 1 birdie and 6 pars over the round. Senior Miriam Colon and freshman Franca Hurtado were just behind their teammate, each carding 88. All 5 of the Explorers on the course made scoring improvements on the second day of play, but the team remained at 8th in the standings. Declan made a 2-stroke improvement, carding an 85. Meanwhile, Colon and Hurtado led the way this round, each scoring 82. On the final day of play, the Explorers finished 8th overall. Colon finished as the Explorers' best player. A final round score of 82 and overall of 252 placed her 31st on the individual leaderboard, one of 4 Explorers to finish in the top 40.
The rowing teams each competed in races this weekend. The men's team started with the Bergen Cup. The varsity 8 boat edged out Villanova by 1 second to capture 4th place. The freshman 8 boat would take 2nd in their race, finishing only behind Temple with a time of 6 minutes and 14 seconds. The freshmen kept their momentum as they would defeat Loyola Maryland later the same day. The women's team had similar luck in the varsity 4 races. Both the main and lightweight LaSalle teams placed ahead of both teams from Loyola Maryland. So that's it for this week's recaps, but stick around because when we come back, we'll be talking men's basketball with Tracy Carter.
What's up? Eddie Dunn here, host of LaSalle's favorite TV game show, Q&A. I'm here to tell you to keep watching LaSalle TV. It's on 24 hours a day, every day. You know what else is on 24 hours a day, every day? Nothing. Well, maybe some things, but nothing that's as important as LaSalle TV. So keep watching, or else.
Welcome back. I got to sit down with men's basketball player Tracy Carter to discuss the new look program and their goals for next year. Take a look. Hi, I'm Tegan Lamont here with On the Sidelines, and today I'm sitting down with men's basketball player Tracy Carter. Tracy, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Tegan.
So one thing I really want to get into is this new coaching change that we have going on at LaSalle. I know we're bringing in Ashley Howard, a guy who has pretty good pedigree as an assistant coach. What do you think he's going to bring to the team this year? What are your first impressions of him?
Well, a couple of things about him. First, he has a great basketball mind.
Yeah.
He brings integrity. He brings discipline, which, and for the guys, I believe he brings just a new voice.
Yeah.
And a person of new voice who knows what he's talking about and just his mind.
Yeah, I think one thing that you said there that's really key is he's something new. We had the same coach here for 14 years. What are some differences that you see between him and G?
Well,
I mean, I know you didn't get to play for G, but you got to go through practices with G and that type of stuff. So what do you see differently so far?
Well, like I said, I believe the main difference between him and G is he's that new piece.
Right.
He gives the guys who've been here someone new to listen to, a new ear,
Right.
a new voice, which and he has credibility.
Right.
Credibility. So I believe those are the main key points.
Gotcha. So I know you had to transfer. You transferred in here. You were at Marquette originally. What was your hardest part about transitioning into a new school, into a new program, all that type of stuff? What was the hardest thing for you?
Well, I think the first key is transition, right? Because transition is always hard because it's new, right? So the first part that was hard was just transitioning, learning everything. I mean, I'm a Philly native, but it's a new school. At Marquette, there were more people to help the kids on the basketball team. There's only Christine, and she does an amazing job at helping everybody in the athletics. Like, she does an amazing job, one of the best in the country.
Big job for her,
yeah,
for sure. Another thing, back to the transferring. I know you had to sit out a year. Mm-hmm. What does a year away from playing basketball do for you, both personally and as a player?
The most important thing it does is it teaches you patience.
Right.
The second thing it does, it lets you see the game without being in it. So observing. So now when you start playing, you've seen the play happen, and because a lot of times where you're playing, you're moving so fast that you won't normally see what you can see on the bench and not playing.
Right,
So,
it slows down the game a little bit, lets you take it in from a different perspective. Another thing I want to talk to you about coaching real quick. I know the staff is retaining Donnie Carr, who was an assistant last year. What do you think he's going to do to help bring some continuity to the program, bring a stable force to the program?
Well, I think also he brings a basketball mind, a great knowledge of the game. He's played overseas. He had his NBA chances. He's been in the game for a long time. He's a legend here at LaSalle. Like I said, his overall knowledge, him still being able to play, he can get up and down with the guys and us.
He's a younger guy on the staff.
Exactly, exactly.
I know that plays into a big role with being able to relate to players, is being able to actually get out on the floor and move around a little bit. I know a lot of younger coaches, and even Ashley Howard's not a super old guy. I'm sure he gets a little bit involved, more so than other coaches.
Yeah, he does. He gets involved a lot.
Another aspect that I want to talk about is what the expectations are for next year. What do you think this team can do this coming season?
I believe we can do great things next year. And when I say great things, I mean we can win an A-10 national championship. These are some of the goals that we talk about.
Right.
But before we must attack our goals, we must be consistent with doing the great things to help us win that A-10 national champion or that national championship every day. So it's like a bird. It keeps hitting at the rock, but it doesn't crack until the 101 time.
Right.
But it wasn't that 101 time that did it. It was the 100 times that did it before the 101 time.
You got to put in all that work to get to where you want to be. And then personally, what are your goals for next year? What do you want to accomplish as a player?
I think personally my goals are just to be the best teammate I can be, the best player I can be. I want to lead the country in assists. So those are some small things that I have goals for myself.
Yeah, that sounds like a great plan. We have a lot of guys that can put the ball in the hoop, and I know you're one of them too. But we always need that guy that's looking to get the ball to those guys and looking to facilitate and make plays outside of just scoring chances. So that's great to hear. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thanks again to Tracy for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I just want to send it back to the desk. That was an awesome interview. I really enjoyed sitting down with Tracy. One thing that he really wanted to point out was how different I think Coach Howard is than what Coach G had established in here. I know I've got a few friends that are involved with the basketball program, and they're getting up 6 a.m. most days to go into practice. Yeah. It's a really intense new situation with a lot of basketball being thrown at the players, a lot of like intellectual play being preached to them. It's not so much, the scheme isn't in place yet, but it's a very in-depth approach to playing basketball and being smart all the time on the floor.
And it seems like someone like Tracy likes that about Howard, whereas I can see a lot of people being like, why is this guy coming in making me get up at 6 a.m.? You know what I mean? Like, I think these players want to play and they want to get better.
Right, that's another thing he talks about is the grind is where they need to start right now to get to a place that they want to be at the end of the year. He said they want to compete for the A10. So competing for the A10 starts right now, and that's very important for them.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you. That was a great interview.
Thank you.
But stick around because when we get back, Nick Palaio hits the desk for this week's Explorer Report. Stay tuned. There's plenty of LaSalle sports action this upcoming week, so let us welcome Nick Palaio for this week's Explorer Report.
Thanks, Dana. Hoping to match last weekend's A10 Series sweep, Explorer Baseball will be coming back to Philly to face off against A10 powerhouse St. Louis in a 3-game series this weekend. The men will take to Hank DeVincent Field to begin the series against the Billikens with their first game on Friday, April 27th at 3 p.m. The game will be a part of the Spring Tailgate Series. The Explorers currently stand with a 14-26 overall record after their most recent road loss to Georgetown. LaSalle will be up against an overall Billiken record of 25-15. Despite sitting first in the A10 with an 11-1 record, St. Louis is coming off of a 6-game losing streak, so there may be some hope for the Explorers, who currently rank 9th in the A10 with a conference record of 4-8. To pull out a win against the Billikens, the Explorers will need to rely on season standouts Austin Constantini and Ben Faso to deliver offensively at bat. Not to be counted out for LaSalle is recent game leader Tommy Toll, who went 2 for 4 in this week's Georgetown loss. To limit scoring opportunities for St. Louis, the Explorers will need to contain a .274 Billiken batting average and contain top players Jake Arella and Nick Reeser, who lead the Billikens at bat. LaSalle just needs to remember the baseball basics, getting on base and then capitalizing on hits to bring runs home. If they can do that, we may see another A10 win on the horizon for the Explorers.
Thanks, Nick. So this is a pretty big series for the Explorers. We've been hot, and then unfortunately we did drop that tough game yesterday to Georgetown. But St. Louis has been doing overall well. But they are coming off of a 6-game losing streak. So tell us a little bit will that help LaSalle, do you think? Tell us a little bit about what that means.
So St. Louis actually hasn't had a win since they swept their 3-game Dayton series. So they are coming, as you said, with a 6-game losing streak. So I don't think they'll be coming with as much confidence, I think, as they normally would, considering they are leading the A10. They might normally come in with some degree of confidence. So the Explorers can capitalize on this and really work their magic and work their winning strategies that we've seen in the past and kind of take advantage of the fact that while we did just have a recent loss, St. Louis had 5 more than we had.
Exactly.
So,
Another way to look at that, though, is maybe St. Louis comes in and is ready to kick some butt a little bit.
It could light a fire under them.
Right. It's a series that St. Louis knows they should win. They probably
Yeah.
know they should win all 3 games in the series. So it's a series that could go really well for the Explorers with confidence on their side, or it could throw them off a little bit.
I like the confidence strategy better.
Yeah, you do like the confidence strategy.
That's what I hope.
Another thing that I want to talk to you about is you mentioned the Georgetown loss.
Yes.
We gave up 8 runs in the first inning.
And that was all we gave up
Right.
the whole game.
What is something that you think we can take away, the baseball team can take away from that loss? What's something that they can learn and move on from in that?
Well, after they gave up that, 8-run first inning, they did have 5 more unanswered runs. So they did attempt to come back. So I think this game showed them as a team that they do have the potential to come back. They just have to come back that much, that much sooner. It's possible.
They can't give up
No, they
early
can't give up.
runs. They got to
Get out of
come
the
out and
gates.
be on top. It's too much to ask for a team to come out of an 8-run
Yep.
deficit.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't have that from the get-go.
No, yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Nick. We have picks of the week. So let's take it to Tegan for this one.
I am going back to the negative guy on desk. St. Louis is 11-1 in conference, and I have them sweeping LaSalle to move to 14-1 in conference.
Well, that says 2-1, but
I had them
he has
sweeping.
them sweeping.
Okay.
I promise.
Yeah.
So I am trying to be a little bit more positive, as I always do. So I have LaSalle losing 2, but winning just 1, because anything can happen in a 3-game series. That's
Baseball.
It's baseball.
I agree with Dana. 2-1. It's the weekend, I think. Something I think will happen over the course of that weekend.
You got to pull something out. at
No,
some point.
yeah.
Well, that just about wraps it up for us this week. If you can't make it out to see the Explorer Report, be sure to tune in next week for our coverage. Keep up with this weekend's other sporting events by visiting goexplorers.com or check out this week's edition of the Collegian.
Also, check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/LaSalleTV and on Twitter at SportsLine LTV. We welcome you to send us your thoughts and suggestions there.
For Isaiah, Nick, and our entire SportsLine team, I'm Tegan Lamont.
And I'm Dana Pecora. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you at the game.